I'm almost afraid to ask that question, but
No,
do you call yourself an artist?
I mean, I like to think of myself as an artist, but I think that in a lot of ways, film is such a collaborative medium. I think I work in a community of artists, and I think that ultimately, film is a tricky thing, because I think that it's one of those things that maybe you have to wait for somebody else to say that your film is art. But I certainly think in terms of the way I work, I like to think of myself as working as an artist, in the sense that I care about all the details. I care about what we're making more than I care about the money. And I care about communication. And art is about communication. It's about connecting between people.
Do you think an artist should be struggling? I mean, I'm really always interested in that question.
Fantastic
Because,
question.
I mean, there's this romantic idea
Sure.
of 1920s Paris, whatever, and everybody's struggling and nobody has money.
Yeah.
And even
Beautiful. It's a beautiful idea. I love it. I'm still in love with it. I can't get away from La Boheme. Most artists struggle with money, but that's not the fundamental struggle. Isn't that the fundamental struggle? Is to not feel dead inside, to make something that you never saw before, to be inspired by those who came before you, and live up to how they make you feel. That's all. How can that not be a struggle? How can that not be a struggle? I mean, you think about an artist's life, the life of the sort of the so-called American dream life, that you grow up, you go to school, you get a good education, you get a good job, you meet the right partner, and this kind of thing, and you get married, and you have the kids, and you have the home and a couple of cars, and everything's great, and then eventually you get a little older, and you get a little tired, and you retire, because you've reached a level, and you get a pension or whatever it is, or a little 401k, and it's all going to be really nice, and the kids are great, and everybody comes home for Thanksgiving, and it's beautiful. What a load of crap. I mean, that's just horrible. It's just horrible. I mean, that idea is so, that we ever bought that is such a joke, frankly. But now, there are aspects of it that are wonderful. Being in love is wonderful. Having children is wonderful. Providing for your family, that's wonderful. Doing something you love, that's wonderful. But this idea that somehow there's this arc of that your life is supposed to go this way, and by the end of it, you're sort of happily, slowly dissolving into the floor, like this kind of, happy jello is just horrible. But this is kind of so in many ways, I think this is kind of the American dream. That everything turns out and it's supposed to go in this arc. But, how can the life of an artist be anything like that? I mean, how can any life really be anything like that? Because you're dead inside. I mean, it seems to me that that's dying slowly. It's just biding your time on the earth and following a program, and then it's gone. So an artist is somebody who, by the very definition, resists that. So the life is naturally going to be unstable. But life is unstable. Right. It's sort of crazy thing that persists through time, and it ends in complete disaster. I mean, more or less, right? So the artist sort of insists upon looking at that, expressing that. And so I think every artist is dealing with that, and every artist in our film is dealing with that in their own way. Now, then you sort of layer onto that the fact that society, the system rewards certain people more than others. And if there's one thing that I want this film to sort of expose, shine a light on, it's that just because some people get more money than others doesn't mean they're better or worse. It just means there's a different system that is the monetary system is something else. Now, it is true that there are also great artists who make a lot of money. I mean, Gerhard Richter is a great example. Gerhard Richter is a great, great artist, no question. And number one for him is art. Is the creation, is exactly what we're talking about. However, his work is also highly prized, highly valued. And I think there are lots of reasons for that. And I wouldn't be an expert enough to really tell you all those reasons, but I can certainly say that I respond profoundly to his work. But then, as you know, in the film, we talk to him, and what does he say? Money is dirty. Money is dirty. And even more than that, when he, looks at the paintings on the wall and he says, it's not right that a painting should cost more than a house. I like it, but it's not a house. And I find that comment to be so magnificent and so truthful and so right there. And this is in a gallery with his paintings on the wall. Beautiful human being. And his wife too, right there, who's also an artist, saying that, she likes to see work in museums because it gives such luxus for your eyes. A wonderful word, luxus, not one we really use. We say maybe luxury, but I don't know, the language better. Luxus doesn't exactly translate into luxury, does it?
I mean, it kind of does, but it has a nicer definition. It's more...
It's not drippy with...
exactly, it's not glamorous,
right, exactly. It's not glamorous.
Monetary,
Right.
It's more like richness.
So isn't that interesting that our word, in English anyway, richness and luxury, both of those beautiful words have been corrupted by money. So we think of richness meaning a lot of money. Richness can be food, but richness can be in your life experience. Luxury can be the ability to see that view. That's luxury. This is a luxurious view. But is there a value to this view? How do you place a value on this? An artist places a value on it because they're seeing something and they can draw something from it. It has great value. But price and value. So that's very much what in this film we want to destabilize that connection between price and value. And that's central to the whole movie.
Yeah. I like very much what you said about the response. It's all about the response for you or for many artists.
Yeah.
Because we've talked to a lot of people over the years, and there are some artists who would even do films or paint or whatever just for themselves. So then I ask, do you think about the audience? Sure. Do you do it for the audience, or would you do it even if nobody saw this because you have the need?
Sure. Yeah.
But then with film, obviously, it's a medium where you want. There's automatically kind of like a response built into it. Why did you choose?
Well, yeah. Why did I choose film?
Yeah.
You're an actor, okay? That very much you need that response. Part of what you do as an actor, certainly as a live actor, is you're drafting off the audience and you're getting a response from them, and that drives to some degree how you modulate your performance. It's about that. And film, of course, is more of a mass communication medium. For me, I come from the theater, so the theater is my great love. It's like bedrock. Okay. And that I think that what that is going as a kid to the theater and then doing some acting also later and directing some plays. Being involved with it is even more exciting than watching it. But you're not really watching a play. You're participating in a play when you're in the audience. And that group experience, that communal experience of being in a room that suddenly is something magic happens when the lights go down and the curtain goes up or the lights come on stage if there's no curtain. To me, that's religion. We're in church. We're in a sacred space where we have this agreement between all these people that we're here. We're not going to fight with each other. We're not going to talk to each other. We're going to engage in this ritual where these people who call themselves actors are presenting something to us who call ourselves audience. And we have this dialogue. And that's the highest thing that civilization can reach. It's this incredible agreement. And to be in an audience when there's a group emotion, when everybody feels suddenly weepy, or everybody feels laughter, or everybody feels that they want to be silent and just kind of take it in. There's something that happens in that room that is just there's nothing like it on our planet. I think it's what separates us from other animals. This is a thing we do. So I think a film is somewhat attenuated from that. It's a little less than that because the performance can't change in response to the audience. And the performance, it feels like it does. It's funny when you watch your movie in different venues, it feels like it changes, but really, of course, it's the same movie. But you still get the same thing. There is this ritual. The lights go down. There's these wonderful images on the wall, like Plato's cave, happen, and we're all kind of watching them. And you feel these waves of emotion that spread through the audience. And there's a joy of being part of that group.
How did you approach this project in particular because, I mean, documentaries can play out one way.
Yeah.
Yours was very theatrical, it
Sure.
played like a feature.
Right.
I mean, it was
Right.
there was story arcs and everything.
Yep.
And it was this wild ride. Then, for example, you have a documentary which is different, obviously, like Gerrit Richter Painting, for example.
Yes. Oh, yes. Beautiful film.
Which is beautiful.
Beautiful film. Love that film. Love
Very
Gerrit
different,
Richter
though.
Painting. Yeah.
How
Sure.
do you approach a project like that? Would you approach it the same way you would do it with a a narrative feature, or what I'm getting
Sure,
at?
I do. I mean, something like this, contained within this film. This film is sort of we always felt this needed to be a film with multiple characters, because there's so many different ways that artists, especially, intersect with this world of, with the larger art world. And I wanted to be able to show, and to meet and to experience and to kind of follow the arc of artists who are intersecting in lots of different ways. So the artist who is, highly successful and has been that way for a long time, the artist that is sort of really just emerging from, from the world of their education and is suddenly being picked up, by this system. And then the artist, someone like Larry Poons, who was, at one time a really, really hot artist. Yeah. And then, for lots of reasons, many of which are very hard to understand, has been, kind of working more in solitude, really, for a number of years. And now, of course, things are changing for him. But all of those different trajectories seemed like the key to keeping the movie, as you say, entertaining, if you will. I mean, I do believe that movies should be very entertaining. And there are lots of ways to entertain people. But this is one that I really wanted to show a very broad view of things. I also, of course, wanted to show there are really three sort of different worlds we're showing. The world of making art, the world of selling art, the world of buying art, collecting art, if you will, collecting art. So it's the makers, the buyers, and the sellers. But for me, the makers are always the most important. But I think that I wanted it's important to show that whole ecosystem. Otherwise it ends up, I think, if it was, if it only had artists, you wouldn't see what they're up against. And the market is tricky because we talk about struggle, an artist struggles from within as well. And that struggle, and we see that in the film. We see artists struggling from within in different ways. We also see them struggling, from without. Mm-hmm. And I mean, drama does move through conflict. I mean, it's pretty essential to drama. And the conflict doesn't have to be violent, but it has to be there. It can be psychological, it can be physical, it can be, it can take many, many different forms. But you have to have some form of conflict to make it move, or at the very least, some form of contrast. So there's a lot of contrast in the film too, between abstract art and figurative art, right, between different kinds of people, between different kinds of scenes, from interiors to exteriors. All those things are different, from fast scenes to slow scenes. And of course, I mean, I'm talking about this. Here I am. I'm talking as if this is a sort of singular art. This is the work of many people. And so when we talk about the pacing of the film, obviously, I'm talking about the editing of the film.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask
editors.
You must have a great team, even of
Yeah.
camera and sound, because what always came across, and we loved that, the camera stayed on one person that wasn't talking, and we got the reaction, which was a far more interesting part,
Yes.
that uncomfortable, I'm not sure if I agree here, but I'm talking to this, and
Wonderful. That you picked that up is just so fantastic, because I work with, in this film, I worked with several cinematographers, but the main cinematographer for this film is a guy named Bob Richman. Mm-hmm. Bob is very well known in the documentary field. He sort of made his bones, as we say, with the Maysles brothers, Albert and David Maysles, who taught him. He says everything he knows. Well, I don't believe that. He's learned a lot since then too. But Bob is an incredible observer of human beings. And when I say observer, his eye is a loving eye. It is an eye of enormous compassion. Curiosity, yes. One might say there is a touch of voyeurism there. But most of all, It's compassion.
But it was never judgmental, you know.
And that's what I was going to say. It's never judgmental. His eye is not judgmental. So when we work together, and we talk a lot before we go in to an interview about, but I don't sort of talk about, what I need to get sort of thing. It's more about how sort of what I hope we can, the kind of space we want to create with the other person. So say Stefan Edlis, the great collector. We knew that he's a very, very sort of, polished speaker. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to loosen that up. And I just said, look, if he starts to move around the apartment, you've got to be able to come off the sticks immediately and just go into handheld mode right away, because I don't want to tell him, okay, now we'll go around, look at your art. Because, in many ways, as you see, some of his best scenes just come spontaneously as he's talking about his art, and then suddenly it segues into his life, and that's the dream. So working with someone like Bob, and also complemented by Eddie O'Connor, the sound man, who also dances with us, we're really playing a scene with these with our subjects. So when I'm talking to them, when you're talking to me, we're playing a scene. We're in a scene now.
It's a dance, right?
It's a dance. It's like playing jazz together, and if we get along, stuff comes out. So. But Bob also knows from my filmmaking that I don't like to go back. I mean, yes, we'll go back sometimes and get cutaways of things, and people talk about things, but it feels so much better if it can be really covered, when it can be in one covered really, because there's a pause and you realize that the greatest emotion is actually the person who's listening, more than just kind of the person who just said it. It's actually the impact on the person who wasn't talking, and if that works, where that's just a pan and the timing is right, that's just magic. You see that in feature films too. In the greatest feature films, the greatest directors know how to do that. You don't just, as some people say, shoot the shit out of stuff and then cut it together. You really need to kind of have a sense for the reality of, where you are. So working with Bob, we're always looking for that thing which plays, as much as possible in the shots, and that's also why I favor the zoom lens for this kind of work. And I know prime lenses are all the rage, and they're fabulous, and it's wonderful. And yes, you can punch in afterwards, and it's 4K, and it's fabulous. But really, if you have a camera person who works well with a zoom lens, there's a humanity to the way that breathes. Right. When a shot can actually widen, and also not just widen, which you can do electronically afterwards, but widen and pan slightly, there's nothing like it. Anyway,
no.
I mean, this is kind of just theory stuff, but
oh no.
But it's super practical.
What you just said about because I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Christoph Schlingensief.
Yeah.
His biggest thing was always to shine the spotlight on the dark spots, right? Like
absolutely
the spot between the shots, and what you just described is exactly that.
That's exactly that.
I love that.
I mean, there's a moment to talk about another film, in my film My Architect. I don't know if you've seen it, but
unfortunately not yet.
No, it's okay. In my film My Architect, which I made also with Bob, and it's my journey to know my father, who was an architect, Louis Kahn. And there's a scene in which, and he died when I was 11. I didn't know him nearly well enough. Right. And I'm talking to a guy who's talking to me about how my father used to go have Christmas with him. And he's describing this Christmas thing, and it's such a nice scene. And he says, it was great. He used to watch cartoons with the kids, they're all sitting there watching, and he'd fall asleep. And Bob just knew the emotion of that, what this man was saying, that you got to see what the son feels about that. And there's this pan that gets to me, and on my face is this expression of of sort of fascination, curiosity, and also absolute devastation. And I couldn't have, actors spend their entire lives trying to be able to capture that massive emotions. But Bob is a guy who knows where the real emotional center of the scene is going to be. And I trust him completely in that. Right. Anyway, an essential piece of the collaboration. And also when you're talking about these scenes, and this scene, the film really is composed of scenes, and you said it plays like a feature. It does. And I think that's because the things are composed as scenes rather than interviews. There are interviews within it, and people are talking within it, but in general, it's sort of put together as if they're scenes.
Have the protagonists seen the film? Or, especially for example, wait, what was her name? Sotheby's.
Amy?
Yeah, Amy.
No, I'm in touch with Amy. Amy's an incredible
Good.
personage.
Because I mean, everybody was very genuine.
Yeah.
And we were saying, it's a different dimension they live in, right? I mean, it's
absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
it can come across a little bizarre and like almost out of touch with reality, right? But it's not, because it's their reality. And
no, I agree absolutely, and I feel so sort of blessed and honored to have been able to have, to have met this broad a group of people. And in this regard, I was enormously helped by one of the producers of the film is Jennifer Stockman, and she was on the board of the Guggenheim for a number of years. So her deep knowledge of the art world has been enormously helpful. And also, of course, she knew some of these people, so it was much, much easier for us to get to know them and to meet them. And one of the reasons I think that, and Jennifer herself would explain this, one of the reasons that she wanted to be involved in this film and make this film was because she had seen over the last 15 years the changes, that it was very, very difficult, increasingly difficult for museums to get art because of this kind of ballooning art market. So this is a very, very interesting aspect of the story, and she was enormously helpful in not only identifying the right people to speak with, but also to introducing me to them, and so that was essential, and it is often essential. There are also characters within it who no one could have anticipated, and the most important one of those to me is Larry Poons, and Larry was somebody who I'd heard about, and was suddenly I said, well, I'm looking to find somebody in the art world who was once very well known, and maybe who is not so much now, and
it seems too much too good to be true, actually. I mean, it's for the sake of the film.
Yeah. Well, I was very lucky to have several really, really good advisors who said, when I said, look, I want to find something like that, it said to me, you should meet Larry Poons. So I found a way to meet Larry Poons. And the moment I arrived, I wasn't sure what the form of this film was going to be. Really wasn't. Yeah. I mean, we had interviews with a number of people, and they were all very interesting, and many of them aren't in the film. Not because they're not great, just because we couldn't fit it in the same container. The same thing happened to me and my architect. Fantastic people that didn't fit in this film. They could be in other films, absolutely. We come back to another idea, which is comparing it to a film that, say, focuses on a singular artist. And I want to talk about that for a moment. But to finish this thought, it's hard to know what the sort of emotional center of the film might be. Okay. And I was concerned about that until I met Larry. So when we drove up to that house, and it was kind of difficult to find it, and everything else, you navigate up to upstate New York, and I looked at it on Google Maps. It looked like there was no house there. I couldn't find it. I thought, oh my God, what is up here? And he was a little reluctant at first. He was like, I don't know, I want to talk to you. Anyway, we showed up. I saw this house, which is, probably built in, I don't know, it's old. It's 1870s or something like this. And, it's pretty rustic, right? You've seen it, you've seen the film. Anyway, we pulled up. And we're just kind of futzing around with a camera in the back, and suddenly Larry comes out with his coffee cup, and he just starts talking. I mean, there was no how you doing? It's just, he starts talking. And so of course, that's the wonder of working with Bob and Eddie. I just said to Bob, let's, just start rolling. And so I vaguely talked to Larry, very, very sort of, casually, without trying to get anywhere, until Bob was right next to me, and there was Eddie suddenly with the boom mic. And we could easily stop and say, oh, hey, Larry, how you doing? Let's go inside, have a cup of coffee. Let me put a lav on you. Over. You've just screwed your entire film, as far as I'm concerned. It's over. You have to be ready right there to start rolling. Whatever comes out, comes out. And some of the very, very best things happened right then. Larry starts talking. He starts talking about art and money. He starts all kinds of other things we couldn't include in the film about how he knew Brando and Warhol, and how he'd been on the set with Coppola, and just all these wonderful just things connecting it with, and beautiful things about Godard we couldn't fit in the film. I mean, this guy is deeply, deeply knowledgeable about many, many arts. But he sort of intuitively knew where I wanted to go. I didn't have to push it very hard. And then suddenly he's taking me in the woods to show me the woods. I said, well, how do you learn how to see? And he starts taking me into the woods and saying, well, look out there. What do you really see? Oh, trees. No, you don't see trees. You see light. How do you know it's a tree? I'm interested in painting before you identify it with a name. What is it you're actually seeing? It's light. What does that light look like? When you put a name on it like a tree, you've already defined it. Now you know how to paint a tree. That's not what we're looking for. Yeah. So immediately this discussion became this kind of metaphysical thing that was just incredible. And then it gets to be about life, and and you're looking at this amazing looking guy with this beautiful head of white hair. I wish I had hair like that. And and he's talking about art and money, and he still has the coffee cup the whole time, that he's talking about it. And we're just rolling. We don't have a lav on him at that point, So yeah, then we take a little break and we put a lav on. And then I thought, well, gee, I see the studio back there. I'm afraid to go in that studio because I so want to love these paintings. They're going to be so much less than how could they live up to this conversation? It's like, this is, he's going to have some paintings on an easel or something. How's this going to, where are we going to, is this going to be great or why? I don't know what's going to happen. So I thought, okay, let's stop for a moment and let's just kind of do some of the things I know I want to see Larry in his environment. So he just walked through the field and, a few shots like that. I never think of those. Those things are not B-roll. Those are emotional responses to what he just said. He's talking about light and that this is James Fenimore Cooper country, Beethoven's favorite author. I mean, who knew that Beethoven read The Last of the Mohicans? Really? Okay, interesting, right? Okay. So I filmed Larry in those contexts. And then finally, I let him say, well, would you like to see the studio? Sure. So immediately, we're back in the handheld mode. And then the wonder starts again, and you have to be ready. We start going in the studio, and he clearly doesn't want, he's shy about taking us in. He doesn't want to take us in. He's anxious about it. So Bob captures that. And then he says, to his wife, well, Paula, why don't you show them in? So Bob immediately knows the scene you don't want to blow it and bobble it around and change it around and get a wide shot. You're done. It's done. Right. He just very gently widens, pans, allows Paula to start taking us, and then there's a cut in there only because we wanted to lose some time, but it's all there. And she leads us into this room, and all of us just about died to see this room filled with color, illuminated by natural light. By artificial light. There's almost no natural light coming in there. Artificial light blasting on this color. And it's more beautiful than the world we just left behind, which is the real world. That to me was like, wow. He's just reversed Plato's myth of the cave, where the world inside is the shadow world, and you go outside to see the real world. We went from the real world to see the more real world inside. And that, to me, I hope that the film captures a little piece of that feeling. It's amplified by the music, which he's already playing on the boombox, and of course we turn it up, and all that. But that was one of the greatest experiences of the film. So at that moment, we were talking about finding the emotional center. I knew we had the emotional center of the film. It's Larry's story. So, you could make a whole movie just out of Larry's story. No question. Would that movie be at this festival? I have no idea. There should be a movie made all about Larry. Maybe I'll do it. But I wanted this film to have, I wanted to understand the world in which Larry was operating, or had to operate, or once operated, and is again operating in, but also the world that he needed to take himself away from to continue doing art. So, people might say, okay, well, how does this film relate to just, your average person who, might have a picture on their wall, or the artist who hasn't been shown greatly? My feeling is this film, it's all over this film. At least I hope it is. That's my hope. Because if you look at Larry's story, this is a guy who, wanted to be an artist, as he says from the start. And that's a genuine, just a feeling of wanting to be a communicator. But what does he do? He just keeps evolving. He keeps doing his thing, going back day after day after day after day, with hope that he'll do something good. And as another great artist in the film says, Marilyn Minter says, and she's right, many times, if you have something to say, the universe opens up for you. You just may not be alive to see the response. But so, to me, that story, I hope that story reaches across the distances and inspires people to keep going, to keep trying. And if you're a young artist, or you're somebody who's, struggling in life, that you see a story like Larry's embedded in this much larger world of wild noise and success and all those things, and he stuck to his guns. I hope that story is the one that really punches through to people.
I think it does. I mean, I had a very, and I don't want to give it away, but I had a very strong response to the ending with Larry. And because especially before the whole market world, the art market world and Sotheby's and everything, on a primal level, you feel like they're the bad guys,
Sure. I understand.
And to a certain extent, if you see Larry's story, it seems like it.
Right.
But I think it redeems itself completely in the end, so that was beautiful.
That's my hope. I mean, there's always hope that people could redeem themselves, right?
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying, and I don't want to dodge that I think that the market and that the art market is, and we present, I have deep respect for everybody who operates in it that we talk to. They were generous with me. They showed me a world that was hidden to me, and I'm hoping also that people find it fascinating to see how the auction world actually works, how someone puts together a catalog, that we were able to be there with Amy as she looks at a painting, and she has a very polished eye. She knows what she's looking at. What does this relate to art historically? And what does this relate to in terms of like promoting it? How do you sort of, as she says, how do you elevate it without being cocky? That's quite remarkable when you see how people think about art when they go to sell it. Okay, so there is something for me. I mean, I want to turn away in a way, because it's like, gee, I think of art as being something exalted. You have the experience of walking into the Prado Museum, and you come in contact. You walk into the room and you see the Van der Weyden portrait of a picture of the Descent from the Cross. I don't care what religion you are, you fall down, basically. Just takes you down. So how can you put a price on that?
You can't.
You can't. It's priceless. And even to use the word price is wrong. Its value is at the highest level of what we value as human beings. And yet, there are people engaged in buying and selling an art, and they have to put a price on it. We want to engage that ambiguity. It's not celebrating it, but it's accepting it. It's part of human nature. It's not really good or bad. It's part of us. It's part of what we do. As humans, we buy and sell things. The world kind of works on that. So I'm also interested in probing this part, which is, what is it about us that says, when it comes to art, there's something wrong with that? I mean, and I'm curious. I don't know the answer. But there is something in us that says, when it comes to art, it seems, wrong. And I asked a lot of the artists in this film that question, and I couldn't, none of them really wanted to say, they wanted to, a little bit they would talk about longevity. And actually, George Condo talks about it. Okay. When I don't know if you remember the little scene where he's painting and he says, he was asking Keith Haring, what's more important, art or life? Right. And it's, of course, a terrible irony because Keith Haring died only several years later, right? But they both agreed that art was more important than life. And that's a wonderful young person's vision. Maybe an old person's vision too, but it's a wonderful vision. But I think George actually does believe it. Okay. Because ultimately art does last. And he says it. And he kind of puts it in the guise of being his younger self. But I think he might still say that. Because there is something about art that lasts. And if you're the artist and you've made something, maybe we don't really die. Because we're still talking to people. Look at that Rembrandt, another scene in the film that I really love, Alexander Nemerov, which is such an amazing art historian. When he's talking to that Rembrandt, saying, I don't like the way this man is looking at me. What a great way to phrase the connection between that artist, that long dead artist, and the person standing in front of the painting. I don't like his gaze. Not because it's a mean gaze, but because it forces you to it's asking something of you. Who the hell are you? Yeah. Not are you looking at me, but who the hell are you? What have you done? Are you living up to your potential? Those are the questions you can get from you can get it from a psychiatrist for sure, but who knew you could get it from going to a gallery and looking at a painting? So anyway, those are some of the dialogues that I hope this film gets at really deeply. Beyond, there's plenty of glossy sort of presentation. I mean, I think it moves quickly. And to speak for a moment about the composer, Jeff Beal is a fantastic composer. Did the film Pollock, also did House of Cards. He's somebody who absolutely, got the many moods of this film, and that we needed to have lyrical moments and then really hit you quickly, like with auction being put together, we're moving along, putting the catalog, got to go. But he knew, like in that Frick scene, to slow it down, and he wrote that beautiful piano piece, which sounds like you've heard it before, you never have. It's kind of Debussy, it's kind of Satie, but it's all Jeff Beal. It's all him, and it kind of has this uneasy sort of thing that feels kind of classical, but sort of jazzy, and it just kind of makes you a little uneasy, at any rate. My hope is that at its core, this is a film that also makes you think about what is the value of art itself, and that in the end, art cannot be pinned down by money. People can do it, they can mess with it, they can buy it, they can sell it, it can make people rich, but in the end, art itself will twist away from that relationship. It cannot be pinned down.
Art, and then your film as well, in that respect. The interrogation that you're doing with the question, right, of how is there a value to art, or can you put a price on it?
Yeah.
In the end, we thought that you're really just asking the question, what does matter to us, right, as human beings?
Sure, absolutely. But what's the world we want to live in? Okay, what's the world we want to live in? And I think that this is. If the art world, it's very hard to think about the whole world. It's like too much. And it's devastating what is happening in our country right now. I mean, we have to do something about it. And we look to the global community for help. Right?
So in the end, it's love.
So, well, right. But it's also, but I think the question is that art, I think, has suddenly become more important.
Again.
I mean, art's always been important.
Yeah.
But yes, it's more important again.
I think so, yeah.
And I think that, especially those of us who are filmmakers, those of us who are actors, those of us who are involved in the kind of highly communicative arts, truly need to realize that our communications, the things we're making, this festival, the voices that are here in this festival really do matter. And we really can change the world and make a difference. Because look, what you're doing right now was not possible, 10 years ago, or barely possible. What I just made with this film, not possible 10 years, just wasn't. The technology wasn't there. Yes, you could make a documentary film, sure, but they're marvelous ones. But some of the flexibility, the ability to use, even the camera, like the Amira camera, is just so unbelievable to capture the art the way that we were able to do it without like lighting the hell out of it. Right. That we could do that with available light. I mean, that's incredible. That's amazing. These sensors are so incredible today, and the lensing is so great. And then that we can just sit here in this room and do this, and that it will reach people. So we really can make a difference, and we have to do it. So I think art is becoming more and more relevant. And that's actually why in the very end that the last shot is of Jeff Koons' gazing ball, which is actually a symbol I love. I mean, I think it's a remarkable symbol. I love the way he's appropriated from the backyard. Which, I mean, in America, it's like American kitsch. It's, people used to have them in their bird baths, and we used to, snicker at them like, oh my God, look at that, taste is horrible, right? But he's taken this and somehow he's made us think about it. And this idea that, okay, that there's the past and the present and this kind of mediation between things that, he describes it beautifully. I don't want to try to paraphrase how he does it, but that the last shot is looking into this ball, and what do you see? The camera seeing the ball. So the camera, what we do, really truly can make a difference, can change the world. And I think that the artistic voices, we have got to realize that we can have an impact, and we have to take more responsibility for that. Really realizing that the time is now, and the stakes have never been higher. It's the future of humanity, of the human race. It's now. It really is this time. I'm glad to be part of this amazing festival, which I've learned so much from my colleagues. I'm not the young buck anymore. I wish I were, but I'm seeing so many new voices, and actually, so many new forms of technology. But I'm also thrilled to know that, yes, there are marvelous new emerging filmmakers that are going to do amazing things, but they're also older people. They're people my age and even older who have made first films that are phenomenal. And these are people realizing that we have the tools to communicate these critical ideas to the world, and to be able, most of all, it's not a one-way thing. To come full circle back to that room, the room where we're sitting together, it's this dialogue that art wants that we need to listen to.